Football has gone mad. Well, that's according to what Twitter has been telling me. So the other day, Manchester City spent £50 million on Kyle Walker, £45 million of initial fee, £5 million in optional bonuses based on performance and how well he does at Manchester City Football Club. And the Dars across the world are fuming. Absolutely fuming. On Twitter, I saw your Dar the other day putting a few things like football's gone mad, despite the fact that he's not watched a football game since 1993, as he's pretty much been against the game, calling it a load of prima donnas running around the pitch when nurses, servicemen and also firefighters should be paid more. Then you realise your Dar sat in his 83-year-old mum's box room opposite Paul Joseph Watson, and he's wondering how he can get the kids back from his wife in between watching reruns of the Flintstones. But football apparently has gone mad. Now, if you're a Manchester City fan, the likelihood is you're probably delighted with the fact that we have signed Kyle Walker. And to be honest with you, I'm fairly happy. But the reason why people seem to be so fumed these days is the fact that Kyle Walker costs £50 million. But let's not forget that the world of football and prices has inflated year after year after year. So last season has predicted that Manchester City earned around £150 million in earnings from TV rights and also from prize winnings from playing in the Premier League, the domestic competitions and also in the Champions League. That's a very, very healthy amount of money for the football club. But let's not forget there's loads of other outgoings, as well as all those different players' wages and lots of other things and infrastructure going on around the football club. But then again, we've also not factored into that certain things such as the sponsorship and also the small factor that Manchester City's owner, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, is worth allegedly around $40 billion himself, and that was in 2014. And let's not forget, he's got a huge backing behind him, just basically the Abu Dhabi royal family, which is worth a very, very large amount of money. It seems to me that every single transfer window, when another big signing happens and when loads more money is spent, the world of football seems to react in the same way. Football has gone mad. When will this money stop being spent? Well, the fact is that around 10 years ago, people were saying exactly the same thing. I think that when Trevor Francis was probably the first £1 million footballer, people were saying back then, Trevor Francis, £1 million, the world of football has officially gone mad. Yadar was probably writing on Friends Reunited 20 years ago when he saw that Stan Collymore had gone for £8 million. What is this complete load of rubbish? Stan Collymore is not worth £8 million. Then goes back to going out DJing, listening to a little bit of Acid House and leaving the kids at home with the wife crying, thinking, where's my husband left me? Another really interesting to look at is the price of inflation in football. And a really interesting article has actually come out this week by a guy called Paul Tompkins, and I'm going to put the link to this article so you can go and check it out in the description and also in the comments down below. And here is the graph which he's taken a look at, and he's basically been able to estimate the prices of different players and how much inflation has been able to increase their costs throughout time. So for example, a player who was bought, for example, 10 years ago, such as Andriy Shevchenko, for around £30 million in the 2006-07 season, his price if he was to be bought today, as you can see, has massively inflated, which would put him at the top of that leaderboard. Now, his basis of doing this different study is not based on real-world inflation, such as in England. For example, over the last 10 years, the rate of inflation has basically stayed very, very low and has declined in different periods of time. Whereas football inflation has only gone increasingly higher as different players are worth more money based on the fact that more clubs are getting more money, TV rights is more a thing, bigger sponsorship payments, so basically football clubs will be able to spend even more money. So you can see along this list how all these players at one point, probably people would have turned around and gone, wow, look at that, the football world has gone mad. You can see players on there, Stuart Downing, Andy Carroll, loads of big name players who never really were actually materialised as being like great. Another player along that list is Stuart Downing. Wow. That was a lot of money Liverpool paid for him. Did football go mad back then? I don't seem to think so. Now, in more footballing terms, people have said that Kyle Walker simply is not worth the money. In fact, some people even gone as far as suggesting that Tottenham Hotspur's best right-back is in fact Kieran Trippier. Well, statistics don't really seem to be able to back that up as well. I keep on hearing how Kyle Walker can't defend, he can't seem to cross the ball, and he's not even the best right back at Spurs. But the reality of things suggests a completely different story. And in fact, Kieran Trippier only actually started 6 games for Spurs last season. 6 of those as well came off the bench, so he played 12 times in the Premier League for Spurs last season. He may have performed slightly better, but statistics don't necessarily back that up. Now, you shouldn't always take statistics with a pinch of salt, because most of the time they are complete load of bollocks. And that's pretty much the way I like to sum things up regarding statistics. However, Kyle Walker last year played over 30 games, loads more than Kieran Trippier. Now, if Kieran Trippier was to play for the full season, you'd be able to perhaps get a better understanding of how well he would do over the course of a full season. And Kieran Trippier, of course, was a former Manchester City right-back, and unlike Manchester United, I don't think the club's willing to shell out a huge amount of money to buy a player which we already previously had. Now, prior to Kyle Walker signing for Manchester City, City only had 5 homegrown players. And that is a massive factor, because it would mean that City would no longer be able to play certain foreign players, or we'd have to bring in more youth players into the Premier League squad. So it's pretty much well known that City have to purchase British national players into their side. So players such as Kyle Walker instantly become that much more expensive. I keep on seeing people say, well, Bonucci only cost Milan £30 million. Well, not only the fact that he is a couple of years older than Kyle Walker, just the fact that he is 31 and he's also a centre-back, which Manchester City don't necessarily need. Everybody knows that Manchester City need a right-back. We don't have one at the club, so that instantly puts the price a little bit higher. What's that? He's English? There you go, the price goes a little bit more again. He plays for a title rival. I know Arsenal fans are laughing, but the reality is that Spurs these days are in fact really a title rival, so the price goes up just a little bit more, and that's how the price ends up being towards £50 million. At the end of the day, City need a right-back. Footballing inflation figures are always increasing and increasing. You never know. It also shows decent ambition, the fact that Manchester City are willing to spend £50 million on a player, whereas you look at clubs like Liverpool and they're trying to bring in people like Andy Robertson from Hull City. What's more, if you were a Spurs fan, you may in your mind seem to think that Kieran Trippier is perhaps the better right-back, but the reality of the situation is that a large percentage of that £50 million which Manchester City just handed over is going to be spent on a new right-back. And if you can find a player who is as good as Kyle Walker, if not better, for under the £50 million mark, I'll look forward to seeing how you boys get on. It also goes a little bit more symbolically than that, however. If Spurs are willing to sell one of their better players to Manchester City, a team which is also trying to push for the title, it, for me, and lots of other clubs, show the lack of ambition of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. They should have perhaps kept hold of Kyle Walker. They tried to dig their nails in and see perhaps if they were able to sign him. And at the moment, if they're willing to sell off some of their best players, it only seems to suggest to me that Spurs really don't seem to have all that much ambition for trying to push on and try and win the title. People probably have a go at me for that comment down in the comment section down below, but at the end of the day, how long is it going to be before people are going to be selling Ali, Kane, Eriksen, Son? When are these players going to move on? Who knows? At this rate, Tottenham Hotspur, I'm sure there could be a clear sale every single year at this stage if they're willing to keep on selling off players. And let's not forget, there's always a great amount of apathy when Manchester City sign pretty much any single footballer under the sun. They always spend too much money, football has always gone mad, and whoever we sign, there's always a better player out there for less money, apparently. So, for example, Raheem Sterling, Jordan Ibe was, of course, a better Liverpool player, and was always going to be a better player. Well, look at him now. Kieran Trippier, is he going to be better than Kyle Walker? Again, only time will tell, but for me, Kyle Walker is a much better player. And let's not forget that when Kyle Walker's price has always been announced all across the media and all the newspapers, it has always been quoted as being £50 million. However, when Pogba signed, nobody ever announced the allegedly £20–30 million on top of that, which went on all these other different fees. You've seen lots of journalists, lots of people in Italy especially, saying that the Pogba fee was around actually €120 million, in fact €130 million, not the amount of money which is allegedly reported for Paul Pogba in England. On top of that, you've also seen recent transfers such as Lukaku. £75 million has been the amount which has been quoted, when in reality there's always a couple of extra things on top of that, another £15 million. So that figure could have perhaps been always reported as 90 million, whereas for City players, the figure always, Raheem Sterling's case, always has to be the top figure, no matter how well that player actually performs at Manchester City Football Club. And interestingly, there was a poll done on Facebook by a Manchester City fan back in May, when before Kyle Walker had signed and also after when Kyle Walker had signed for Manchester City, asking who is the best right back in the Barclays Premier League, and here are some of the findings. As you can see here, back in May, lots of people seem to suggest that Kyle Walker was the best right back. I'm not sure what group this is, I don't think it was a Manchester City group, but people seem to believe that Kyle Walker was the best right back in the Premier League. Yet, when it comes to Kyle Walker signing for Manchester City, you can see he's well down there, back in 3rd place, which is interesting in my opinion. Now, you could argue that some things have changed in terms of people getting better in that period, but in reality, in my personal opinion, last season, I don't think Kyle Walker was the best right back in the Premier League. I think it was actually Antonio Valencia. So people's opinions may have perhaps changed during the period. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate at this stage. But to suggest that Hector Bellerin is a better right back than Kyle Walker, in my personal opinion, is absolute madness. So has the world of football gone mad? And the answer is no. Prices of footballers are always going up and up and up, and will it ever stop? Well, who knows? But the reality of the situation is that at the moment, Premier League prices of players is always going to increase. There's a premium on buying English players, and as a result, people like Kyle Walker will always go up and up in price. Has football gone mad? Absolutely not. People will always say the price of players has gone mad at that very particular time. In 5 years' time, we may look back and think, wow, Kyle Walker, £50 million, that was an absolute bargain. You never know. In 5 years' time, Paul Konchesky might be worth £750 million. So you don't really know what's going to happen in the world of football. But like I say, I think Kyle Walker is well worth the £50 million. City need a right back. It really is important to the way Pep Guardiola plays in his systems. He wants people to be bombing on down that right-hand side and also being able to be quick, athletic. It very, very much fits the mould which he had with Dani Alves at Barcelona. I'm not saying he's similar in quality. We'll have to see. Only time will be able to tell. I may look back on this video in a few years' time and think you were talking absolute bollocks there, pal. So if you guys got anything to say about this video, whether you agree with my points, whether you disagree, please let me know down in the comment section down below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Arrivederci.